He read Sanskrit so he could study the sacred Hindu scriptures in their untranslated verse. He memorized Dante's Inferno in its native Italian. He wrote introspective poetry, collected rare mineral specimens, and mastered the bewildering landscape of quantum mechanics before most of his peers could even comprehend its basic axioms. He was a polymath who spoke 6 languages, moved seamlessly between theoretical physics and classical philosophy, and spent his nights reading French literature while pondering the fundamental forces of the universe. Meet J. Robert Oppenheimer. He was not merely a theoretical physicist, he was an enigma, a man whose astonishing, almost terrifying intellectual appetite ultimately built the most destructive mechanism in the human history. So, born in 1904 to a wealthy German Jewish family in New York City, J. Robert Oppenheimer grew up surrounded by European art, original Van Gogh paintings, and immense comfort. He was an astonishingly precocious child, collecting rock specimens with scientific rigor and writing to the New York Mineralogical Club at age 12, who were so impressed by his letters that they invited him to deliver a lecture. Unaware they were corresponding with a preteen, he completed his undergraduate degree at Harvard in just 3 years with the highest honors, diving into chemistry, physics, and history, but beneath that gleaming academic exterior lay an intensely fragile, volatile mind. When he moved to Cambridge University in England to study experimental physics at the famous Cavendish Laboratory, his life unraveled. His natural clumsiness in laboratory settings frustrated him deeply, and his acute social isolation sparked severe psychological crisis. He fell into profound depressive states, tormented by an overwhelming feeling that he was an imposter among true scientists. It was only when he abandoned experimental laboratory work entirely and transferred to the University of Göttingen in Germany, the undisputed global epicenter of theoretical physics, that he found his true anchor. Under the mentorship of Max Born, another amazing physicist, J. Robert Oppenheimer didn't merely absorb newly emerging mind-bending world of quantum mechanics, he helped lay its foundational framework. In Europe, his mind flourished in the abstract realm of mathematical equations and theoretical structures. He co-authored the Born-Oppenheimer approximation, a fundamental step in quantum chemistry that remains crucial to the subject today. He returned to America in the late 1920s as a charismatic, slender, chain-smoking young professor, dividing his time between UC Berkeley and Caltech. Oppenheimer established the premier American school of theoretical physics. He was a mesmerizing lecturer, famous for his trademark porcupine hat, his intense blue eyes, and his ability to explain cosmic phenomena through poetic language. A generation of young, brilliant physicists trailed behind him, adopting his mannerisms, his speech patterns, and his intellectual pursuits. Then came 1939. When the World War II started, when Nazi Germany invaded Poland for the Dancing Corridor, and European scientists made a horrifying discovery. The uranium atom could be split, releasing staggering amounts of energy through nuclear fission. The realization among physicists was immediate and chilling. Whoever mastered nuclear fission first would hold the power to dictate the fate of human civilization. In 1942, Major General Leslie Groves made a decision that astonished military officials and scientific leaders alike. He selected J. Robert Oppenheimer, a politically left-leaning scholar with zero managerial background, no administrative experience, and no Nobel Prize, to serve as the scientific director of the top-secret Manhattan Project, the project that would build the weapon that could create world peace. Groves recognized something others missed: an extraordinary, commanding intellect capable of understanding every moving piece of a massive, multifaceted scientific engine. J. Robert Oppenheimer directed the United States military to a high, arid mesa in New Mexico, Los Alamos, a place he had loved since his youth for its vast, silent deserts, dramatic mesas, and crisp air. There, behind barbed wire, and shrouded in military secrecy, he brought together the greatest concentration of scientific intellect ever assembled in the history of humanity. Nobel laureates, young prodigies, mathematicians, and engineers worked around the clock in crude wooden barracks. They were driven by a single, desperate fear that Hitler's scientists, led by Werner Heisenberg, were building an atomic weapon and that they would reach the end first. Oppenheimer transformed from an eccentric theoretical scholar into a master administrator, driving thousands of scientists towards an unthinkable deadline through sheer force of willpower and intellect. Scientists such as Richard Feynman, that we've talked about earlier on this channel, and scientists such as Teller, or we could go in the side of Richard Tolman, or we could go in the side of someone like Rabi. Many different scientists collaborated on this project, even a Russian spy known as Klaus Fuchs, who helped on the implosion device. Then came July 16th, 1945, 5:29 a.m. In the dead stillness of the New Mexico desert at the Trinity test site, the culmination of that desperate race arrived. The world was about to change forever. Trinity test was about to take place. The first testing of an atomic weapon. An atomic weapon that had a near zero chance of ending the entire world because of atmospheric ignition. If the chain reaction inside the atoms never stopped, it would make an unstoppable chain reaction which could reach the stratosphere, which has tons of hydrogen atoms, and hydrogen, being extremely combustible, would ignite the entire world's atmosphere, killing everyone the moment it came in contact with the bomb. When the plutonium device detonated atop of a steel tower, a blinding flash of light, brighter than a dozen midday suns, illuminated the surrounding mountains for miles. A towering mushroom cloud of superheated plasma, fire, and radioactive debris surged 40,000 feet into the stratosphere, melting the desert sand into green glass. As the catastrophic shock wave roared across the wilderness and the rumble shook the earth, Oppenheimer watched the glowing sky from a bunker. The atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki 3 weeks later brought a swift, devastating end to the Second World War. But for J. Robert Oppenheimer, the victory was instantly overshadowed by an immense moral tragedy. Celebrated across the globe as the father of the atomic bomb, featured on Time and Life magazine cover, he walked the halls of power in Washington carrying an overwhelming psychological burden. During a private meeting with President Harry S. Truman in the Oval Office, a visibly shaken Oppenheimer thought that he was overwhelmed with grief and told the president that he felt like he had blood on his hands. But the president said that it is all about him, not Oppenheimer, that he was the one who dropped the bomb, not Oppenheimer, that no one in Hiroshima and Nagasaki cares even one bit who made the bomb. They care who dropped it. In the years that immediately followed, Oppenheimer tried desperately to steer humanity away from its own destruction. As the chairman of the General Advisory Committee to the newly formed Atomic Energy Commission, he used his immense public stature to advocate for international control of nuclear energy and fiercely opposed the development of the hydrogen bomb, a thermonuclear weapon thousands of times more devastating than the atomic devices dropped on Japan. His outspoken moral resistance and political influence earned him dangerous, unforgiving enemies in Washington, most notably Edward Teller, who worked with him on the Manhattan Project, the ambitious physicist who championed the hydrogen bomb, and Lewis Strauss, the powerful chairman of the AEC. At the height of the Cold War and the anti-communist hysteria of the McCarthy era, in 1954, Oppenheimer was targeted in a humiliating secret security clearance hearing for 4 grueling weeks. His past political associations, his left-wing friends, his personal relationships, and his loyalty to the United States of America were subjected to hostile cross-examination. His security clearance was stripped away, casting the nation's most famous and celebrated scientist out of the government he had served so faithfully. Broken in spirit, aging rapidly, and publicly disgraced, Oppenheimer retreated to academia. He spent his remaining years serving as the director of the Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton, New Jersey, surrounding himself with elite theoretical physicists, mathematicians, historians, and poets. He spent his summers in the Caribbean, sailing small boats and seeking solace away from political life. He died of throat cancer in 1967 at the age of 62. To the very end, Julius Robert Oppenheimer remained a deeply divided, tragic figure, a lover of peace, who directed the creation of the ultimate weapon of war, a seeker of fundamental scientific truth, who found himself trapped and destroyed by political ambition, a brilliant scholar who gave humanity the key to its own destruction and spent the rest of his life desperately warning the world not to turn the key and destroy itself to its own demise.